Well, look, I know the Turkish President Erdogan visited the Hagia Sophia overnight before the first Muslim prayers were held. Now, the Hagia Sophia was once a church, later a mosque, and now a museum. This is really rough stuff for the world, I can tell you. This is not a good story. I've long warned that Erdogan is a dictator in all but name. This bloke is the real deal. He's been president of Turkey for over 15 years. Turkey's founding father, Kemal Atatürk, was its first president from 1923 till 1938. He modernised Turkey into a secular industrial nation. He's commonly regarded as one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. But this Erdogan, E-R-D-O-G-A-N, Erdogan, has boastingly thrown out the secularism and democratic institutions that Atatürk created and replaced them with his radical Islamist agenda. Under his rule, Turks have witnessed widespread corruption, mass arrests, and a gross abuse of civil and human rights. This bloke actually went to prison in 1999 for his uncompromising support of Islamist culture. But under his presidency, he has assaulted the country's democratic institutions. The military sees itself as the guardian of Turkey's secular democracy. Well, back in 2013, Erdogan jailed senior military officers for life. It's hard to believe, but to secure his ends, he arrested 1,563 soldiers. He banned all academics from leaving the country. Teachers were forbidden from travelling abroad. The licences of 2,100 staff working in private schools were revoked. More than 20,000 employees at the Education Ministry were fired. The state-run Higher Education Council demanded the resignation of 1,577 university deans. He charged 99 generals and admirals, about a third of the country's top military officers, in connection with a failed coup against his administration, and more than 50,000 people were detained, sacked or suspended. The mystery is how this military coup failed. He was actually the mayor of Istanbul between 1994 and 1998, removed from office, went to jail for extremist Islamic behaviour. He was regarded as a direct threat to the fabric of the secular state. He backed the Muslim Brotherhood takeover in Egypt. Yet here he is, president of Turkey for over 15 years. It borders on the unbelievable, but he managed to beef up his own presidential powers in 2018, which gave him power to directly appoint top officials, intervene in the legal system, issue decrees with no regard for Parliament. The Turkish people voted for this nonsense, and they're now without a say. Well, Erdogan's economic management is another story altogether. He's tanked the Turkish economy and presided over inflation skyrocketing above 20%. And now, to distract from the economy's second recession in 2 years and his parting waning support, Erdogan is beating the Islamic drum again, this time by reconverting the 6th century Hagia Sophia in Istanbul from a museum for tourists back into a mosque. The building had been open to all visitors, regardless of their faith, since its inauguration as a museum under the modern republic's founder Atatürk in 1935. The World Heritage Site was built as a church during the Byzantine Empire, commissioned by Constantine, the founder of Constantinople. The Hagia Sophia, meaning holy wisdom, is Greek. It hovered over the historical capital of the Eastern Roman Empire since 537. Early visitors were always awestruck by the millions of gold tiles covering the cathedral's dome. In fact, envoys said of the cathedral way back in the 10th century, we didn't know where we were, in heaven or on earth. The site is steeped in history and beauty, but now this thug, Erdogan, wants to dismantle the Atatürk legacy. The majority of Turks seem to have woken up too late. They now believe this move is designed to distract from the more pressing issues confronting Erdogan. They're dead right. A senior official of the Russian Orthodox Church said the move signals a return to the Middle Ages. But for Erdogan, it's about locking people up and appeasing his religious backers. He's someone the international community should fear. Well, Michael McLaren is the man you love. We have him here every Monday night. And we talked about this in relation to the destruction of monuments and so on. This is another form of destruction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the great monuments of the world. I've been there 3 times, and when you go in there, those early commentators were quite right. You get this sense, Alan, of being transcended somewhere unearthly. It's quite a magical building. I described it on air the other week as probably the most impressive building on the planet. And I don't resile from that, it is. And obviously Erdogan not exercising any holy wisdom of his own. It's pure political manoeuvring that he's doing here. Now, sure, it was a mosque after 1457, I think it was, when the Ottomans rode through. They stuck the minarets on, converted it. But as you correctly said, Ataturk in his wisdom said, look, we've got to get away from this sort of Saudi, Iranian style of government, and we've got to have a secular public space.
It seems to me, Michael, there's no way back. I cannot believe that the people approved the extension of the powers to this fellow. I can't believe the coup failed, but he's now given himself the sign of powers that Putin's given himself in Russia.
Quite right. I mean, a lot of people lose sleep over Putin and Xi.
Yes.
Well, this guy's doing it on the Bosphorus. And, of course, the problem is, unlike Russia and China, Turkey's in NATO. And so when you've got someone acting like, well, a Hitler on the Bosphorus, then what does that mean for the strength of NATO? I mean, they're always sticking the boot into Trump. Well, at least you know the Americans will ride in and save the day if they're required. You can't guarantee that with Turkey under Erdogan. And this is symbolic, isn't it, of something far broader and far more sinister.
Absolutely.